Hello everyone, I'm so excited for you to join us on the July 2023 release video hop. So much fun and excitement to share with you today. We are starting out with two new sets of Betterpress plates from Altenew that coordinate with the Spellbinders Betterpress system, which I'm going to show you right here. So here we're going to start with the Altenew plates first, the Dainty Flower Garden plate set, which is absolutely gorgeous. And then we have, of course, Floral Engravings, which is absolutely stunning and gorgeous as well. Just amazing. And then we have an instruction booklet on how to use your Betterpress, what came in the box with the Betterpress set, and some inspiration in the back. Here was the other die set that was included from Spellbinders. And then we have the porcelain 25 sheets, the cotton card panels, and that's a sampler pack. I didn't know till I opened that. And then we have some of the tape to hold the panels in place, as well as the Betterpress black ink and re-inker. Then we have the Betterpress system itself. It's packaged beautifully. We're going to go ahead and open up the clear packaging and pull this out. It did have a tissue paper protecting the plate, as well as there is a clear protective film on the plate. So it should be crystal clear when you have your plate ready to go. Remove the cardboard. There are 3 shims that were included as well. Then you have your magnetic base, which I was trying to figure out how to get out, and just tilted and had it come over, but then realized there's a place you could put your finger and just lift up. I put my shims in the back behind the magnetic platform after watching a video from another crafter. And then I put it all back together, and we will bring the top plate off again. And I'm going to get ready to do my first press with the Betterpress. I'm cutting open what is the sampler pack. I didn't know at this point that it was, but it has the porcelain, the bisque, and it has a gray color in there that's really pretty. So I used the porcelain for all of my projects today. And I used pigment inks, so it kind of didn't matter. And then because I was new and did not read the instruction book, if I'm being honest, I am just going ahead and figuring it out. I made sure, to get my Betterpress plate here ready. I was so excited. And so I lined this up over in one of the corners, and I'm so excited. I love that there are lines on the magnetic plate as well, so my sentiments are lined up perfectly every time. And I'm making a mistake right here. I don't know it yet, but we'll get to the mistake in a second. I'm using the new Jet Black Fresh Dye ink, and I'm going over my plate. And as you can see, I am heavy-handed. You do not need to be heavy-handed at all. I actually need to be lighter-handed. So my mistake was I put bigger pieces of tape in all the corners, and my plate went up over in 2 of the corners. So my plate did not get ink into those areas because I had the tape essentially protecting those areas. So I just have to make sure, going forward, not to put tape in corners where my plate will be. But it's okay. I just trimmed my panel down and used it for a card. So we're going to get started now on our second card. You just saw our first card there. We're going to start with Coral Berry and a small blending tool. I'm going to cover this panel and then come in with Warm Sunshine in 2 of the corners. And once we have that done, I'm going to add some splatter from the iridescent spray onto my panel. Just for some interest, it really adds that extra touch when it's dry. It's so pretty. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to place our plate back in and get our sentiment. I'm putting my sentiment up in the top corner this time. And I will go ahead and I'm putting smaller pieces of tape this time. I'm using Coral Berry, the same ink that I blended onto my panel, to stamp the image, or press the image into the cardstock. So we'll run that through my Platinum 6 machine, pull that down, and we'll flip the plate off, and it just is so pretty. It's amazing to me that it takes literally maybe 20 seconds to have such an effect on a card. It is so stunning, absolutely stunning. And as you can see, I've been quite messy with my inking because I am heavy-handed. You do not need to be heavy-handed at all. I actually need to work on that. But it cleans up beautifully, just wiping it off. It cleans up perfectly. So I started with Arctic pigment ink, then went to Persian blue, and I wasn't getting the darkness that I wanted except this one corner. And then I was like, oh gosh, I really kind of wanted to do like a halo effect and have it be lighter and then darker. And then we decided, because we had that whoopsie with the dark corner, that we were going to go right to sapphire, and we were just going to have a night sky kind of panel kind of look. So that's where we ended up going, and it worked out perfectly. I love using these pigment inks with this system. They are absolutely phenomenal. The fresh dye inks are phenomenal as well. Basically, you can't go wrong with any of our Altenew inks. They're just fantastic. So I'm kind of playing around with my plate, seeing where I want the plate to go and the sentiment to go. And I like that arrangement. So now that I'm good with that, I'm putting down my puppy pad so I can splatter. I'm starting with the pure white splatter from the pure white spray, ink spray. Then I'm coming in with the antique gold, and I'm using a paintbrush and an old stamp block because otherwise I get big gobs a lot. So I like the little splatters, and that's what I really wanted today. And finally, I have some iridescent that I'm splattering onto the panel, and that will finish off all of the sprays. So I have that. I did let that dry for probably an hour before I put it through the Betterpress. So again, I'm using small pieces of tape. And then I'm aligning this, and then I realized I wasn't really aligned. So I aligned the 2 points of the floral, but then this is where I learned that there's the hole that you can put your finger and lift up the plate. And I realized it wasn't. So I adjusted it a little bit so that my squares, you know, matched on each side for my sentiment and for my focal image from the Dainty Flower Garden press plate set. I'm now using the Cloud White pigment ink, and we'll go ahead and we will press that by running it through our Platinum 6. And then we lift the cover, and just so beautiful. Just absolutely love it, love it, love it. And I can see making so many of these. It is so quick, easy to clean up, and the effect is amazing. So now we're going to move on to the Shimmery Hummingbirds set, Boat Adventures, and Sincere Sentiments stamp set. I also used Masonry Wall embossing folder, 3D embossing folder, which is older. And I do not have the footage where I did the hot foiling. That got corrupted somehow. So we're skipping right ahead. I used Altenew Brush Gold hot foil, and I used Spellbinder's Mini Rainbow hot foil. So I'm going ahead and I'm beginning with my hummingbird, and I'm using Sweet Dreams. I'm using Dewdrops. Then I'll come in with Aqualicious, and this is where I'm kind of starting to plan out on my second ink. Where is it going to be darker on my project? So now that I've done that, I'm going to come in and I'm going to wipe this off with a cloth a bit. Just don't want to have excess on my hot foil. So I want to make sure I'm paying attention to any excess ink that I get accumulating on that. So I've gone ahead and used Teal Cave to finish off this hummingbird, and I'll wipe the foil off again before lifting the stencil and moving on to the second hummingbird I have here. Think of hot foil as like embossing powder where ink can sit on top of it. As well, ink can sit on top of hot foil. So you want to be careful when you're moving around a lot with stencils and hot foil. So I'm going ahead, and again, I'm covering it all in Dewdrops. Then we'll come in with Aqualicious, and I'm going to start adding that into areas that I feel would be darker. And I did go pretty dark on this second hummingbird, but I have to say I really, really love this second hummingbird. I think I love the coloration. And so finally we have Teal Cave, and this is where I'm going to apply it to where I think it would be the darkest. And I love how it came out. And I'll wipe it down before lifting up my stencil to make sure I don't get any transference of ink. And there we go. We have our first set of hummingbirds. These are on vellum. So usually the one in the Altenew insignia is up in the top left corner. And you can read it, so it's going in the correct direction. I flipped over my stencil to do the back of the vellum so that you get a soft, really beautiful ink blended look. And so this way you can still see the one in the Altenew insignia, but they're backwards because I've flipped over the stencil. So now I'm using the Amy Tan collab inks. I've used Cherry Sweet, Tangerine Dream. Now I'll finish it with Lemonade Stand. And here, lift it up and look how soft and blended and beautiful. Just gorgeous, just gorgeous. I love the effect this gives. And it really gives you more to do with your stencil because you can use both the front and the back of your stencil. So here we'll begin with Let Us Celebrate. And I went a little crazy with that one because I did most of the hummingbird in it. And I'm wiping the ink here. This is Easy Breezy, this ink. I'm wiping the ink here because I don't want to contaminate my blending tools. So that's why you see me wiping it with my microfiber cloth there. And finally, we'll finish with Be Grateful, which I wish I had more Be Grateful. It's so pretty, but I went wild with Let Us Celebrate, but it's okay. It's still beautiful. So very pretty. Then I'm going to bring in an adhesive sheet. I wish I would have given the vellum a little bit to kind of dry and let the colors blend. I did get a little bit of bleeding with that because I did it so quickly, but that's okay. So now we have all of our hummingbirds. We're going to go ahead and start assembling our cards. And again, I have 4 of the Masonry wall panels. So I figured out my layout and I'm going to use the Carpe Diem from the Boat Adventures. I'm going to stamp this down with my Obsidian pigment ink. I'm stamping it twice so I get my beautiful crisp image. Then I'm going to turn this and I'm going to stamp it again. I'm going to heat set one of these with clear, crystal clear embossing powder, and the second I'm going to heat set with antique gold embossing powder. And you worked perfectly. So you can use the gold embossing powder with obsidian and it works perfectly. Just think of the obsidian like a glue. So it's basically holding that embossing powder on there so it covers up the obsidian. And you just see the antique gold embossing powder. Here I'm taking some satin masking tape and using the die from Boat Adventures. We're going to run that through the mini blossom. And I'll do that for both of the Carpe Diem sentiments, which I love everything about the sentiment, the shape, the size, it's the font, it's just fantastic. So we have both of those. Then the hard decision came of the black or the gold, the black or the gold. I ended up going with the gold, and I'm using the new Altenew scissors, which are fantastic, super sharp, cut beautifully, cut everything like butter. And I'm going to go ahead and put my sentiment with my tweezers. I'll use glue tape on the back of my hummingbirds to put those down. But looking at this, I could have used the black, I could have used the gold for the sentiment. It depends on the day. And I almost put the hummingbird down so he was like feeding from behind the sentiment, but I didn't end up going that way. But just an idea, maybe that's something you'd like to do. Now I'm going to go ahead and put foam tape on the back of my adhesive sheet. And I'm going to stamp my sentiment in black, which I don't love. A, because it's crooked. And B, it was just too stark with the gold foil and the beautiful soft blended look. So I decided to cover it up, and so I'm stamping the same sentiment onto a piece of scratch paper with antique gold pigment ink, and I heat set it with clear embossing powder, and then I'm trimming it down. And it didn't look right there still, so I decided to add a piece of the brushed gold cardstock to the back of it, and that was the ticket for my eye. That made me very happy. And it fit perfectly over there, so I put that into place with my glue tape pen after putting foam adhesive behind the sentiment. And then I'll peel off the foam tape and put that into place. So we have 2 cards there, working on our third. So we're going to use this beautiful hummingbird right here. I'm putting foam tape on the back of our sentiment. Get that into place. And that's the great thing about using the adhesive sheets, especially with vellum, is that you still can put either glue tape, like I'm putting glue tape here, or foam tape. You don't have to peel the backer sheet off the adhesive sheet. You can just leave it on there and use whatever adhesive you want in conjunction. Here I'm using a fine tip glue to attach glue behind the hot foil. Now we're using a sentiment from the Sincere Sentiments stamp set, and I'm just figuring where I want to put it, and Emery came to help because apparently I looked super confused. So Emery came to assist. So I'm putting some foam tape on the back there and deciding where I want to put it, so making sure I have enough foam tape. We'll get that and put it on my crafter's alignment mat, get that lined up, and then I'll trim that off with my brand new wonderful scissors. And there we go. We have 4 cards to share with you from this amazing hot foil and stencil and die bundle. We're going to have a look again at the Betterpress cards, so pretty, and a quick look at the hummingbirds one more time. Thank you so much for joining us on this hop. We can't wait to see what you create. Until next time, happy crafting.